Hello friends, welcome back. My name is Ramon. How are you today? In today's video, I'm going to be doing a hot takes and hot cakes, which if you don't know, is basically a thing where I do on my channel where I share an opinion, a hot take, while doing a little mukbang, having a little snack. Hot cakes. Today we're not having hot cakes, we're having a plum because I bought fresh fruit, and if I don't eat it before it gets bad, my boyfriend gets mad at me. Today's topic we're going to be talking about is basically addressing issues of colorism, racism, exclusion that I've noticed recently in cosmetics from different companies. I've noticed a lot of talk about on social media, something I've just noticed as being a very prevalent topic, and I just wanted to address it. So before I get into today's video, I'm gonna have to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you know when I post more skincare content on my channel. Hit that thumbs up and down below. What are your thoughts on these hot takes? What are your opinions on these things? What are your 2 cents on the matter? Let me know. Get into it. So basically, yeah, I'm going to be touching on a few different topics in this video, but basically factored into 3 categories, which is representation, accessibility, and consideration, all within the skincare / dermatology field. Basically, all these are coming from the fact that there's a lack of representation of brown and black individuals in the skincare industry, in terms of them being employed by these companies as well as just being used in like the advertisements, and also as well as the lack of brown and black individuals in terms of formulating and devising products, coming up with products specifically geared towards those individuals, as well as just testing and doing research on these products as well, since a lot of times these people are excluded out of clinical and cosmetic trials for cosmetics or skin conditions as well. The first thing we're going to be talking about in these regards is under the category of accessibility. And so the first topic is going to be about clean beauty. I'm talking about clean beauty a lot on my channel. I don't believe in it. But based off the tenets that they're trying to talk about and base a lot of their brands and ethics out of, I think there exists a lot of issues within the clean beauty community, racism aside, and that just has to go with like fear mongering and like spreading of misinformation. And correct me if I'm reaching here. I find that clean beauty a lot of times talks about they have products formulated without all these toxic ingredients and all these things that are going to be so harmful to people, and that these are the best ingredients to use because they're from nature and blah, blah, blah. And they exclude these bad toxic ingredients that the other brands do use, and that's what makes them better. But here's my tea with that, is that a lot of times these products, these brands are really inaccessible. Either they're really, really expensive and they're like unattainable from those in low socioeconomic standing, or they're offered in places that oftentimes discriminate against black and brown people, such as Sephora. And as someone who's worked at Sephora, I've seen my fair share of discrimination in the workplace there. And while these brands are becoming a lot more prevalent in larger chain stores like Walmart and like Target, they're still not the most affordable things in these spaces. I'm looking at like Versed Beauty, who oftentimes their skincare products are on the higher end of price point that you'd find at Target, for example, as opposed to things like Neutrogena, CeraVe, Clean and Clear. So then for me, the issue becomes like, well, if these are going to be the best of ingredients, these are going to be the ones that are going to be the least toxic or have the least toxicity to them, and that's why people need to be using them because they're clean. Why can't everyone use them? Why aren't these more attainable to more people? What about the people that can't afford them? Are you just going to be like poison your bodies, you know? But again, I don't believe in clean beauty, so. And beyond just the fact that a lot of times these products are really unattainable to those in like lower socioeconomic standing, there's also the fact that I don't feel like any of these brands really cater or advertise towards black and brown people. They don't really feature black and brown people in their advertising either. And if they do, it's more like tokenizing them or just kind of like, right now it's a hot topic, but these aren't brands geared towards those people. And then granted, now there are a lot more black owned clean beauty brands making their way into larger retailers, and that's actually a really great thing right now. For a while that wasn't the case, so it's kind of like you're excluding a lot of people just through inaccessibility, and also you're not really marketing towards these people, and yet you're kind of advertising as being like the best kind of beauty that can be. Next topic is going to be sunscreen, and this kind of relates back to clean beauty in a way, but basically with sunscreen, there's a demonization around chemical or organic sunscreen filters. And as a result of that, especially with clean beauty brands, because chemical sunscreens are bad, they only utilize mineral filters. Here's the tea with that. Chemical filters are the only filters that are transparent on all skin tones, therefore they're the most usable by darker skin colors. If you have these clean beauty brands or other beauty brands, honestly, who are formulating only mineral sunscreens, those are the ones that have white cast. Just the function of how the filters work, they reflect light, they have a white cast, but also the pigments used are white pigments. And so a lot of times brands will have tinted versions where they coat the pigments or they incorporate iron oxide to color the pigments or the formulation. But basically those iron oxides are one tone only. These brands only release one shade of mineral sunscreen, and that's like my color. And even for me, sometimes they don't work. Even by doing so, you're still, tint or not, excluding a large portion of darker skin tones. So even with that, you're excluding a large amount of the population. You're not even considering formulating anything that is remotely close to their color. I'm not even talking about brands like First Aid Beauty and CeraVe, who came out with horrible tinted sunscreens. Check out my review. But even something like the Inky List, who just came out with their sunscreen. I did a review on it, and it's a tinted sunscreen that's a lot better formulated, I think, because it doesn't feature iron oxides as a colorant, but they only came out with the one color. And while it's a really nice formula for a majority of skin colors, It's in no way including dark skin colors, and they themselves even said this will leave a cast on deeper skin tones. So why wasn't that factored into the formulation of these sunscreens, you know? Beyond that, these brands also utilize models of color, black models, to put on the sunscreen to showcase, oh, our formulas are sheer, they're universal. But first and foremost, they're showcasing these models putting on a pea-size amount. And I'm talking Biosons, I'm talking pipettes, cocoa kind. Then they're reinforcing the fact of not using enough sunscreen. If you're not using enough sunscreen, you're not getting the proper protection the sunscreen is advertising by using a pea-size amount. And this perpetuates two things. Number one, that dark skin tones don't need as much sunscreen or don't need sunscreen altogether just because they have higher amounts of melanin in their skin, which is not true. And also B, the fact that these brands don't even formulate sunscreens for darker skin tones in mind. That pipette ad with that family, the 3 daughters and the mom, if you watch, they all put on a pea-size amount, and even on the mom, there's still a cast, even with that little amount that she's putting on. So the next category we're going to be getting into is the matter of representation. And the first thing I'm going to start off with that one is going to be advertisement. As I mentioned with clean beauty, the lack of Black, Indigenous, people of color in advertising it's very present. It's a thing. You know, a lot of brands don't feature brown and Black models in their advertising, or if they do, it's very tokenized, or they don't want too many because they already have one token Black person. Or a lot of brands don't reach out or collaborate with influencers of color. I mean, the largest names, the most recognizable names in the beauty industry right now, influencer-wise, are white. The biggest name in skincare YouTube right now is white. So just to reference, like the biggest names in skincare YouTube right now, the one biggest name is drastically larger than other people I would consider to be in that top tier of most popular influencers. And even those influencers, mostly being all white, are drastically larger in subscriber count than even the most popular, most subscribed to Black and brown influencers right now. And so the beauty industry caters specifically more towards lighter skin tones. We see it in foundation launches, we see it in sunscreens, we see it in advertising, and who they choose to collaborate with and who they choose to market to. I'm pissed. And they really reach out to collaborate with influencers of color or really pitch towards people of color unless it becomes something that needs to happen because they're getting peer pressured to, or it's suddenly like in vogue to do so, or it's like the new it thing to do right now, especially recently with the wave of brands working with Black influencers or trying to feature more Black models in their Instagram and social media pages. So there's a big lack of representation overall within the skincare community in terms of who's advertising and how they're advertising overall. And let's get in the topic of skin whitening, which was a thing for a long time. And recently there was a big push for one of the biggest cosmetic companies, L'Oreal, to finally stop utilizing that terminology in advertising skincare products, specifically in countries where colorism is still very prevalent and still very popular. And now I'm aware whitening and brightening are two different things altogether. Something I've touched on consistently in my K-beauty and J-beauty videos, just because they utilize whitening a lot, but just due to cultural translation, that's what it comes out to in English. But in reality, it just mean like brightening the skin tone, evening out the skin tone. But still, up until recently, I'm talking 2020 right now, we still had brands that were perpetuating the need to advertise whitening on their skincare products and really targeting these products towards audiences in countries where colorism was still very prevalent. I've also come to realize that due to my content being mainly about sunscreen, I've amassed a certain kind of following of people who watch my content because they want to wear sunscreen for the fact that they don't want to be tan, they don't like having dark skin, they think dark skin isn't aesthetically pleasing or beautiful. And I would just say, first and foremost, I do not support that. I do not believe in that. That is not why I choose to make sunscreen related content or why I wear sunscreen. If that is something you personally believe, that is something I think that is much more of a deeper issue that I think needs to get addressed. But I don't want that on my channel, so just understand that now. Thank you. Next under the category of representation is C-suite. And by that, I mean people in executive, managerial, leadership positions in cosmetic companies. Recently, especially in the light of all stuff happening right now with Black Lives Matter, there was a big push by the lady who started Uma Beauty called Pull Up or Shut Up, where basically she was asking for transparency in companies' managerial, leadership, and C-suite to see what percentage of those positions were held by Black individuals. And as a result, what they were going to do to put in place to change that, diversify their leadership, and basically call to action a lot of these companies to like be more diverse. And mind you, this was during the time where people were posting a Black Square to Blackout Tuesday to really amplify Black voices and whatnot. But in reality, Pull Up or Shut Up was kind of like making companies accountable to seeing if they're going to put their money where their mouth is and not just play a passive role and really actually like create a change in the cosmetic industry, actually hire Black people and put them in positions to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. And what this showed was that a lot of companies had honestly single-digit percentages of Black individuals in these higher up leadership managerial positions, which is honestly no surprise considering that, again, these companies are the same companies that aren't tailoring products or advertising or marketing or showcasing to the demographics of Black or brown people. And so without having these people in these positions to influence change, we're not going to see a big change happening in the skincare industry. And therefore that goes back again towards accessibility in clean beauty, in advertising, in marketing towards these demographics of people who aren't catered to in the skincare industry already. And the last category I wanted to talk about was consideration. And basically this was a weird name for the category, but it was in considering Black and brown individuals in the field of dermatology, in the field of science and related to cosmeceuticals. And that's just in regards to, first and foremost, studies and research behind products, behind benefits of skincare ingredients, behind understanding medical conditions. Going back to the fact that there's a lack of representation in advertising towards Black, Indigenous people of color, and the fact that very few brands actually cater a lot of products to those demographics, period. You also have a fact that these populations are also heavily excluded when it comes to clinical studies, consumer studies around products and cosmetics and the cosmetic industry. And a glaring example of this comes when you factor in the fact that Black and brown people showed single-digit representation when it comes to clinical studies around cosmetic ingredients. Or the fact that there's such a glaring misunderstanding and lack of knowledge when it comes to understanding the difference in how skin conditions appear on lighter skin versus darker skin, and thus a lot of skin conditions go misdiagnosed or undiagnosed altogether. Another factor that goes into this is the fact that historically, these minority groups were actually the ones that were used in unconsenting medical studies to undergo government medical testing that left them with longstanding medical difficulties or longstanding medical side effects as well. And I'm talking the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, for example, or the test towards Native and Puerto Rican women based around fertility that left all these women sterilized against their will. So while these populations are rarely utilized to be able to test the topical application of skincare and the results and benefits you can get from them, historically, these are the populations that were utilized for covert medical government testing that left a lot of negative side effects. And that's the thing I want to touch on was something I already mentioned, and that's basically an understanding of how Black and dark skin is differently affected by skin conditions than their lighter skin counterparts. And basically that's just that in these demographics with dark or Black skin showcase skin conditions in a different way than is generally studied and shown in light skin. But the way that white or light skin showcases these symptoms is the blueprint for how these symptoms are studied. So along with the fact that these populations sometimes don't have the medical benefits or resources available to them, the medical professionals who treat conditions like this oftentimes don't even have an understanding of how to address or recognize these conditions in deeper skin tones. And as a result of that, again, they get completely misdiagnosed or undiagnosed altogether. And this goes to show for things like melanoma or the skin-related cancers, which showcase a lot more prevalently in lighter skin, but on darker skin showcase completely differently, or even something as simple as dermatitis, where on lighter skin you can see the pink inflammation of the dermatitis, whereas on deeper skin, oftentimes that's barely a texture that showcases. And so that's just an example of how with two different colors of skin, a similar condition can oftentimes look completely different, but unless you're familiar with how to recognize it in both subsets of skin color, you oftentimes won't be able to diagnose things correctly. So deeper skin tones aren't studied in this regard either. You also have a lack of representation in the dermatological world as well as you do in the cosmeceutical world, like I talked about with advertisement. And with that, that's what I wanted to touch on. Basically what I wanted to talk about, and the reason why this came up altogether, was just in regards of holding brands still accountable for things that we're still seeing. Granted, it's been a few months since we've first seen the onset of hopefully trying to push for social change, try to get more out of these brands and holding them accountable to their claims of doing more to hold themselves to a higher standard, working more towards including Black and brown creators, towards being more inclusive overall with who they work with, how they showcase their products, who they're working towards advertising with, and not just doing it as a performative aspect, like actually sticking to their word and doing what they say they're going to do to force change in their companies. I think this is just a matter of still being really transparent with what's going on, the issues that are deeply embedded in the skincare industry, and again, holding brands accountable. Again, we're still seeing brands launching sunscreens that are tinted, but not tinted for all skin tones. We're still seeing brands kind of do more performative advertising and commercials. Again, the whole pipette thing with the family of the 3 Black girls and the mom, and using sunscreen incorrectly, but still claiming it's sheer and universal. Brands who had the black square on their Instagram months ago, but have since deleted them or have done nothing to show that they're actually going to do change. Like this in regard is what I'm trying to really address with this. I am a brown creator, I'm not a Black creator, but again, my platform is something I try to adjust towards all Black, Indigenous people of color. And as a result of that, I'm going to be as inclusive with that as I can be. So what you can do watching this video, go support other BIPOC creators, go watch their videos, go share their videos, go share their content, engage with them on their social media platforms. Engagement does a lot for them. Push for brands to include more brown and Black influencers in their campaigns, to send those Black and brown influencers PR, collaborate with them more heavily. Because basically I'm tired of the biggest names in this industry being white men. I don't relate to that, and I'm tired of them telling me a sunscreen's gonna work for me just because it works for them. It's not. Trust me, I've tested them all. And with that, thank you guys for watching. I hope this wasn't too heavy. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you know when I post more skincare content on my channel. Give this video a thumbs up or else, and down below, what'd you think? What are your 2 cents? What are your thoughts on these topics that I touched on? Let me know. Bye guys.